Well, hello, Amanda. Happy spring. I loved being able to spend Easter with you and the girls and Mom last week on our little girls getaway.
I know. It's so nice for us to be able to get together and do that. And happy spring to you too. The last time we recorded, we had our hubbies on the mic with us.
Yes, we did. And I think Eric and Chris could both talk about baseball all day long.
Yeah, we for sure needed them for the podcast to balance all that sports and testosterone. We reran Still Magnolias again last week to kind of even that out. So I got to say, even as a repeat, that one gets me every time. I love it so much.
Yeah, me too. And rerunning it made me think back in the day when you only had 2 or 3 channels. You probably don't remember that, but I do. And how much I hated rerun season, right? When new shows.
Yes, I do remember rerun season for sure. And I mean, I think like it's not even really a thing anymore. It's so weird. Like I don't even think my kids, like to them, a rerun would be going on streaming, like a streaming platform and looking for an old show.
Yeah, and rewatching it for sure.
It wouldn't be a rerun.
Yeah. But I have to say that when it comes to the podcast, I love doing this with you every week, but it was nice to just take a break and throw one of our favorite podcasts on and just unplug a little bit. Everybody needs that. And so go ahead.
And enjoy each other, each other's company.
Of course. So this week, we are moving on to a new movie, of course, and we are diving into the world of cocktail-soaked charm, awkward jokes, and I don't know how else to say it, sister, other than a man-child millionaire.
Yeah.
Real fans, it's time to rewind with Arthur.
I'm Amanda.
And I'm Missy. And this is Real Sisters Rewind.
Join us as we go back to the 80s. Welcome back to Real Sisters Rewind. If you love the 80s movies and still think they just don't make them like they used to, you're in the right place. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Missy. We're sisters, and every week we rewind to one of our favorite films from the decade of big hair, unforgettable soundtracks, and iconic moments, the 80s. We break the movie down scene by scene and throw in some fun facts, trivia, and a few stories from our own lives.
That's right, sister. And we mentioned the big hair and the 80s styles a lot. And I want to flag, because I don't think people say this enough, that big hair was quite a job to get the big hair. Like it was quite a chore.
Oh, yeah.
It was not an easy thing.
Spray, tease,
roll,
spray.
Absolutely.
That's right.
It was a lot of work. So people need to know that. But before we get started, we'd love if you would hit the subscribe button and leave us a review and a 5-star rating. It helps us so much. So we're sending out Real Sisters Rewind stickers for every review. Just take a screenshot and email it to us at hello@realsistersrewind.com and we'll pop one in the mail to you.
All right, I say we get going for this one. Everyone, y'all lift your glass and let's make a toast as we rewind all the way back to 1981. All right, Amanda, it was July 17th, 1981 when Arthur hit theaters, and it was right in the middle of summer, so I guess it was like that summer blockbuster season. I was about to turn 12, and you were approaching 5. So I know that you didn't see it in theaters.
And you didn't either.
I didn't see it in theaters either, although it was rated PG.
Which is wild.
Mind blowing. Yeah. But do you remember the first time you saw it?
So I think in my young child brain, there's some confusion because I was obsessed with another Dudley Moore movie that came out in 1982
Okay.
called 6 Weeks. I don't know if you remember this. It's the
Yeah,
one
something about
where
a ballerina or
he
something.
was, I think, yeah, it was like a single mom. I think the mom and daughter, and I think he was dating the mom or something, and the daughter was a ballerina. She was in the Nutcracker and something. She had some kind of issue with her ears, or maybe she had a brain tumor or something. I don't know. But I was obsessed with that movie. Now, here's what's interesting. I clearly had not been to the theater to see Arthur, but when I would see this movie, because it would come on HBO all the time, I remember it was on all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think, oh, that's that man that's in that drunk man movie. Like I knew he was the man in the drunk guy movie. So I don't know how or when I saw it, probably on HBO, but I saw it somewhere along the way.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely going to get into the drunk man movie. I don't know if I can erase that from my mind or not. That may be the new name for this movie forever.
Did you see it? Do you remember when you saw it?
I don't. I know I saw it not long after it came out. I remember at the time thinking it was funny.
Yes, that's what I was going to ask you if you thought it was
Yeah,
funny.
thought it was funny. Um, but I'll talk more for some
About
reason
that.
as we go through the movie. I think I'll have some
More
things
to
to share
say.
about what I thought when I first
Well,
saw it.
can I just say something here real quick because we are talking about that it's 1981.
Right?
I feel like it is really interesting for us to think about and to frame that the 80s, right? I mean, it's obviously a decade, it's 10 years.
Right?
There is a vast difference between a 1987, 88, 89 movie and a 1981 movie.
Oh,
That
for sure.
actually, if it came out in 81, it was probably being filmed in 79 or 80. It was in production
Right.
at least.
Right.
And it was very different being
Yes.
such an early 80s movie.
Yes.
And that
And
might
you were talking
explain
about,
some of it.
yeah, maybe you were talking about you had this other movie of Dudley Moore that you loved. There was a movie that came out in the 70s. I'm not sure what year, I'd have to check. And it was called Foul Play. And it was with Chevy Chase and Goldie Hawn.
78, sister, 78.
78. And it was like one of my first few like big girl movies. And
Mm-hmm.
Dudley Moore had this role that he played, and it was hysterical. And I can remember being young, like maybe I'm thinking fourth grade, somewhere in there. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but I just can remember that he made me laugh so hard in that movie that I know I was excited to see Arthur, aka the Drunk Man movie.
Yeah. And you probably already were going into it thinking this guy was funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was.
Well, it was interesting for sure. So let's talk a little bit about the music of 1981.
Let's do it.
So let me tell you some little tidbits here.
Okay.
So, first of all, when I was this age, I used to have a little, um, like a little record player that sat on the floor, but it was a real record player. It wasn't just like the Fisher Price one, like a real
Right.
record player. Do you remember that? And it sat by my door.
Yeah, I do.
I could sit on the floor, crisscross
Yeah.
applesauce right
Yeah.
there by the door, and I would listen. And back then, you would have the book to read along or whatever. Well, if you remember, around this time, the Chipmunks were very popular, like Alvin, Simon, Theodore.
Oh, yeah, of
and
course. I remember you
loved
had the album.
Christmas,
Yes.
Christmas. Yes. Well, there was another animal album, and it was like the knockoff of the Chipmunks. So
I like the knockoff of the Cabbage
Yep,
Patch
that's
Kid.
exactly where I'm going. Yet
Okay.
another
Okay.
knockoff. And I was
Yep.
like, I just want the Chipmunks. But this album had two songs that were like top of the charts in 81. One, Betty Davis Eyes, but it was like not chipmunks, it was like squirrels. It was like the squirrels. And they had Betty Davis Eyes. I'm not even kidding. And another really popular song during this time was Jessie's Girl.
Yes.
It was on there too.
Okay.
Betty Davis Eyes and Jessie's Girl were on the like fakey dupe whatever for the chipmunks. And so that was disappointing.
And so was Betty Davis Eyes popular at the time?
Yes, it was like number one.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, it spent like 9 weeks at number one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, here's another tidbit for you. There's a lot of music stuff going on here that really piqued my interest.
Okay.
Here's another one for you. The One That You Love. Here I am, the one that you love.
Supply.
Yes,
I was an Air Supply super fan. Saw them in concert.
Well, let me tell you what. That concert on the Mississippi Gulf Coast was my first concert ever.
You went. Mom took
I know.
Tina and me.
And we sat on the balcony.
Yes.
Like on the close to the front.
Right.
I remember. Absolutely.
Oh,
it was my first concert.
them.
I was like, what's a concert? And we went and I was like, oh, I loved them. I loved their greatest hits album.
It's one of the best greatest hits albums.
You can just let it play and play.
Even today. I'm going to listen to that tomorrow.
There's a hilarious Saturday Night Live skit about Air Supply.
It's really?
Funny. Yes.
Well, speaking of New York and Saturday Night Live, how do you like that segue I did there? Fashion was really kind of coming into its own with the preppy styles, right? You had polo shirts, often doubled up, as we talked about.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Boat shoes, like they were huge. And they were especially popular like in that summer fashion, because I can remember especially boys, they'd wear like the longer Bermuda shorts, usually plaid, and they had that polo shirt on and then like boat shoes. And I loved that fashion on boys. I thought it was such a cute look.
Sure you did. I bet. Did Steve from Florida, when he came, did he wear that look? Or being from Florida?
That was a long time later, but I still love a preppy look though.
I do too. Especially
it's my
guys.
favorite,
it's a nice,
look, because it's like clean and cut and put together and
still like kind of young and fun.
Yeah, it is for sure.
And for those of you who don't know what boat shoes are, in case you're a little bit younger, they're like kind of like Hey Dudes or like
Sperry topsiders.
Yes,
I mean that's exactly what they were. But back in the day, we did call them boat shoes. We
did, and there was not a boat to be seen, not a boat to be had, but you were still wearing your boat shoes.
Yeah.
Boat or no boat.
Exactly. But I think they were called that because like the rubber sole.
Yeah.
That you can wear.
What was the popular brand?
Sperry.
Of the boat shoes.
Sperry.
What about Bass?
Yeah, Bass. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot about Bass shoes.
With the corks. Remember on the ties on this ends, how we would make the little corkscrew?
Yes. Do you remember Bass Weegens?
Mm-mm. Oh, the ladies' sandals?
Yeah. I loved some Bass Weegens.
They need to bring those back. Those were comfortable. Those were good shoes.
They were good shoes. I don't know.
I don't remember Sperry's. I remember Bass.
Yeah, you're right. Bass came first. Sperry's were more like my college years. Go girl. Very good. Very good. And of course, that was around the royal wedding. And so Princess Di was, she was kind of trending, although that wasn't a word then, with her style, people were wanting to copy that all over the globe.
I wonder if her style, I don't really know, but we've talked before about the floral and all that kind of stuff. I wonder if that kind of came from her dressing with those type of like floral dresses and the collars and all that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I don't
Yeah.
remember if
I
she
mean,
dressed like that or not.
she dressed very feminine, but
Hmm.
also tailored,
Hmm.
which I think probably is what you're describing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. Well, at the box office, I have to tell you, there was a family favorite Disney movie
Oh,
that
am I
was
getting clues here? Am
released.
I getting clues here?
Okay, let me see if you
Okay.
can guess it. It was a family favorite movie. It was released in July
So the same
and
month.
it was an animated film
Okay.
and it
Disney
was
movie.
not a princess movie. So
Okay.
that should definitely narrow it down for that time
An
period.
animated movie that
Hmm.
wasn't a princess movie. It wasn't Anastasia because that was the 70s. Dear Lord, I
But
hated that
that's a
movie so
princess
much.
movie. Oh,
Anna
you're talking about
Fantasia. No,
Fantasia. I'm like Anastasia's a princess.
yeah, Fantasia.
Yeah,
Is it
no, it was not
Fantasia?
that.
Is that right? Yes. I hated that. I remember I went to see that movie with our some cousins
And you
and
were
mom
like,
had
what
like
is
dropped us
happening?
off and we both hated it so much we got up and walked into the main area of the movie theater and
Just
just
waited.
waited because you didn't pick up the phone and call
Yeah,
because you
you just
didn't
had to
have a
wait.
phone. You just waited. But we hated it so much that we didn't want to wait in the theater. It
Oh,
was
girl,
that bad.
I believe it.
Okay, so let me get back to guessing. Give me a clue about one of the characters.
Um, they are, it's animals.
Oh, those the the it's a dog and a goat, not a goat, a dog.
Lady and the Tramp?
Yeah, kind of like Lady and oh, the Fox and the Hound.
Yep, that is it. It's the Fox and the
You
Hound.
loved that
No,
movie.
that's why I brought it up. I loved the Fox and the Hound. I, to this day, love the Fox and the Hound. It is one of the sweetest, bittersweet, I just love it so much. They're so precious, the characters, and I
And there's
loved
a
it.
famous of who was the voice? There was a famous guy who did one of the voices.
Oh, I don't know. I'll have to look that up.
I
But
think it's Kurt Russell. I think Kurt Russell did one of the voices.
I'll look it up and
Yeah,
see.
look it
But
up and
I
see. Well,
love that movie so much. So it was released in July of 81. Um, so I loved it. Also, gotta get my politics in.
oh, here we go.
And well, I thought so. I was going to ask you about this because I know at this time the US was really in a recession and President Reagan was in office and introduced his budget cuts and trying to cut government spending to get us out of the recession. Do you remember that at all? Like, do you remember it being a thing,
No,
like being in
girl.
the recession or like having to wait in line for gas or any of that stuff
I
that I've
really
seen like on
don't. I don't
TV?
remember any of that. I do remember the gas lines being seen on TV, but in, Oak Grove, Mississippi,
Y'all just kept a rolling.
yeah, there were no lines for gas.
Yeah.
We were,
Mr. Howard's store, it was just
well,
roll. You just
Howell,
total. Oh, Howell. So sorry,
Howell. Yeah,
Howell.
no, that's
Mr.
fine.
Howell's store.
Yeah,
You just
you
kept
you
on
weren't
going.
more than one or two cars waiting for that for sure. Well, I'll tell you something that had just come out and was gaining huge popularity that summer. And it was giving us teenagers a lot more freedom because we got to get away from the wall with our phone. It was cordless phones.
Oh my gosh.
Cordless phones had come out, and you no longer had to be a bazillionaire to have one. Um,
What a dream.
it was a dream. I can remember. I mean, I clearly remember when the cord was on the phone and you had the family phone in the kitchen
On the
and
wall.
on the wall, and I so clearly remember taking that receiver and going as far away as I could in our dining room and stretching out that spiral cord till it was as straight as an extension cord because I was trying to get away to have a private conversation.
Yeah. And I will say that even though the cordless phone came out here and was much more popular, it's not like suddenly all you had in your house was cordless phones, because even I remember standing in the kitchen on the wall phone with the cord and twirling around, wrapping up,
Oh, yeah,
jump
for
rope and all
sure.
that. And that was in our house till I was there till fifth or sixth grade.
Mm-hmm.
And then even in our new house, so of course we had, you know, more cordless phones, but primarily it was still plug in the wall. In my bedroom, it was a plug in the wall phone.
Yes. I loved a cordless phone, and who knew what a cordless phone would turn into? And I can remember, Amanda, back in the day when we had those cordless phones, like it would be so great if I could go walk around the neighborhood with this. Right? Because you
Yes,
couldn't get very
I
far
was
from
just
the
about to say,
receiver, or
because
you
it would
would
start
lose. Yeah, you'd get that
getting
static.
staticky.
Yes. Yes. And look at us now.
Look at us now,
Look
girl.
at us
Look at
now.
us now. We're here on being able to see each other on screen from far away.
Like the Jetsons.
That's right. Well, sister, I love true crime. Like,
You?
well, we both do,
There
but
you
like
go.
we both love it. But
Right.
like I have a million true crime podcasts
You
that I'm
do.
constantly listening to.
Yeah, it really got you into podcasts
Yeah,
for
that's
the first time. Yeah.
That's right. And so one of the podcasts that I had listened to was called The Atlanta Child Murders. Do you remember this?
I do, yes. I mean, not
Okay.
details, but I do remember it.
So the reason I'm bringing it up, it actually was in July of 79, but it came to fruition in 81 that they got a
Okay.
break in the case. So that's how it's tied to our 81. But in July of 79, there were a lot of, well, it started with two 14-year-old boys in Atlanta that went missing, but
Okay.
several children in the Atlanta area, I believe it
Yes.
was at least 28,
Wow.
went missing. And it was children, teenagers, and some adults, but mostly it was on the younger end of the spectrum.
Uh-huh.
And so this serial killer essentially became known as the Atlanta child murderer, the Atlanta child murder case. And they actually, like, Atlanta was really gripped in fear from this because, like I said, it started in 79 and they didn't even get a break until 81. So that's a really long time span for this to be going on. But once they got a break, this is the podcast on this was in much more detail, but what happened is during a stakeout on the Chattahoochee River Bridge.
Wait a minute. You mean way down yonder in the
On the
Chattahoochee?
Chattahoochee. You got it, girl. Um, Police, they were just out on a stakeout and they heard a splash and pulled a car over that it was being driven by a 23-year-old Wayne Williams, and fiber evidence taken from his car, and a body that they found floating downriver 2 days later, which was the body that they heard the big splash, helped them have evidence to be able to convict Williams of the murders.
Okay, so they heard a splash and
It
then
was
they're
the
like,
body.
there's a car. Let's go stop that
Yes.
car because something just fell out of that car.
Something's
Oh
going
my
on.
gosh. Wow.
Isn't
I wonder if
interesting?
there's been a true crime drama on it. Surely there has been, like something
Probably
you can
so.
watch on TV.
Probably so.
I'm gonna find it.
Yeah.
I love my true crime drama.
You love your true crime drama on TV, but yeah, I listened to probably a few years ago the story of the Atlanta child murders.
Okay, sister.
One more thing.
I was going to say one more thing.
Well, before I forget, I looked up. You were right. Kurt Russell was the voice of Copper, the hound dog.
Oh, okay. I knew it. Okay, so I have one more thing to tell you, and I guess it's kind of crime related, but not really. But something really happened for women in 1981, right around this time. Ronald Reagan, there's your little politics, right?
Yep.
He had written in his diary on July 6th that he called Judge Sandra Day O'Connor and told her that she was going to be his nominee for the Supreme Court. And sure enough, she was confirmed in September and became the first woman to ever serve as a Supreme Court justice. So I thought that was notable.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I love Ronald Reagan.
I know you
and
do.
That is so precious.
Yeah.
What an amazing
I think
moment
it's so
for
cool
women.
that, and I think it's cool that he wrote it. He
In his
recorded it in his diary. So Ronald Reagan. All right. So let's talk about the movie itself.
Yes.
Arthur was directed and written by Steve Gordon. And sadly, this was his only film, Amanda, because he passed away a year later in 1982.
Do you know of what? That is weird.
I don't.
I wonder if he was old.
I don't know. I should have researched that.
We go deep, but not that deep.
Well,
we'll try to look into it. We'll see.
Okay.
Well, the film stars Dudley Moore as Arthur Bach, Liza Minnelli. I mean, it is Liza Minnelli.
It is Liza Minnelli.
But at moments, you think that it's Judy Garland.
She looks so much like her in this movie.
If you closed your eyes, you'd be like, "Is that Judy Garland?" Like she sounds so much
she does
like
sound like her. Yeah.
And she plays Linda Marola. And the legendary Sir John, I don't want to say his name wrong. Help me. Is it
I think it's Gielgud. Yeah, something like that. Let's just call him Sir John.
Sir John. Let's do that. And he plays Hobson, Arthur's dry sense of humor, dry-witted, devoted valet.
Yes. The movie was rated PG, which, as we kind of hinted to earlier, it's kind of wild to me that it was PG. Of course, we know there weren't PG-13 ratings then, but it was a lot of drinking and a lot of innuendo all packed into it. And so it's shocking to me that it didn't get an R rating.
But I guess because they didn't have any nudity.
No, but it all but did.
Yeah.
And the runtime is in our sweet spot, Amanda, 1 hour and 37 minutes. Short and sweet, you might say, just like Dudley Moore.
Well, but it felt long to me. I'll tell you more. Yeah, okay. I'll tell you more about that as well. But it felt long to me. Okay. I was like, this drunk guy is really just going.
Just drawing out.
Another thing I just still wanted to mention too, that when we were talking about Sir John playing Hobson, his valet, that's another thing that made it feel to me like so old. It was very, I don't know, like I don't think of rich people now having like a valet
like the formality of it.
Yes. Yeah. That was very formal. The movie had a budget of $7 million and went on, get ready for this, to gross over $95 million at the box office. That is a monster hit for a comedy in the early 80s. And I am just going to say it here. I don't get it.
I know. And I'll tell you, back in the day, I loved it, but we're getting ahead of ourselves, sister. We've got to hold back. I
just don't get the 95. I guess just people were like, this is hilarious. So you got to get out and see this.
I guess. Okay, so let's talk about awards because it racked them up. Sir John won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. He did a great job.
Yes, I can get on board with that.
Yes.
That's the only one.
And the movie also won the Oscar for Best Original Song. You know the one. It's Arthur's theme. The best that you can do is fall in love.
Is that the one that's like,
if you get caught between the moon and New York City.
I always thought it was, oh my gosh. I always thought, this is a shout out to Kelly Carter. I always thought it was, if you get lost between the moon and New York City.
Oh, that's so funny. No, it might be lost, but I think it's caught.
No, I think it's caught.
Okay.
That sounds better. Oh, Christopher Cross. Gotta love
Yeah.
that guy. Well, the song was everywhere. It hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 that October, and it won a Grammy Award as well.
Yeah, it's a great song. And do you know I have a friend? You probably don't know this. She's a soul sister. Who Marsha Ramirez, if you're listening, Marsha, shout out. She's an amazing vocalist herself. And she travels now with Christopher Cross. She's one of his backup singers.
Oh my gosh.
I
How
know.
cool. Do you think that 81, because I'm thinking about the awards and the box office, was just a bad year for movie? Like there just wasn't a lot out there, maybe?
I I don't know. I'd have to go back and
Well,
look.
yeah, I need to look at my list of
Yeah,
81
let's go look
films.
and see. We'll see what was up against it. Um, well, the role of Arthur Bach was actually not intended for Dudley Moore. The part was actually turned down by a slew of stars. And just some names I'll throw out there. I won't even tell you all of them, but it was like James Caan and Al Pacino and John Travolta. And I can't imagine John Travolta. Al Pacino.
He would be too young.
I know, but a whole slew of stars: Sly Stallone, Robin Williams, a bunch of people.
James Caan was Elf's dad, right?
He was.
That's the right guy.
That's the right guy. Yes.
Well, there were also a lot of actresses that were considered for the role of Linda Marola, which included Carrie Fisher, Deborah Winger. She's always considered.
She
I feel like
is
she's
always
always
considered.
thrown into the pot. Meryl Streep.
Can you imagine? I can't imagine Meryl Streep.
I think I could see her. I think she could do anything though.
She can do anything.
I think Goldie Hawn could have done it.
Oh, for sure. I could see Goldie Hawn. Was she one of the ones?
Yeah, Goldie Hawn. Farrah Fawcett, no, girl.
No, she's too glamorous.
And then Jessica Lange. What about her? She could do it.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I don't think so.
Well, they were declined or passed over. Like they were like didn't
pass it. Well, I do think that Liza Minnelli was perfect for the role. I really do.
Yeah, because she just to me fed into the whole the whole thing was so confusing and baffling to me, and she was just like another piece of that puzzle that I was just like, what?
Yeah. Well, real quick, just about casting. Hobson wasn't originally going to be British, but it was Gregory Peck who suggested that it be a British actor, which ultimately led to that casting of Sir John and to his Academy Award.
That was brilliant because I really think that made the formality even more more apparent.
Yeah.
And I think that was really smart. Well, nearly all of Dudley Moore's early 1980 films, Arthur, Lovesick, 6 Weeks.
That's the one you talked about, right?
Yes. Romantic comedy were shot in New York City. And I remember 6 Weeks. I know for sure because I remember the girl being in the Nutcracker was with the New York City Ballet. And I also remember them riding on the subway because that's when it would get really loud and it would bother the girl's ears or something.
Yeah.
I need to rewatch that.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we had a great time when we went to see the Nutcracker in New York, didn't we?
We did. It was so
Rockefeller
stunning.
Center. It was incredible.
No,
it's not Rockefeller.
That was the Rockettes that we saw there. It was
that's all right. Not Rockefeller Center.
Yeah, it was the ballet we saw. It was the New York City Ballet. It was at Lincoln Center.
Yeah, Lincoln Center.
And it was
Lincoln, Rockefeller. Yeah.
It was absolutely so stunningly beautiful.
Yeah. Now, I do generally fall asleep in the first act, and I did again, but it still was fabulous.
Yeah. It was amazing.
Well, speaking of it being filmed, a lot of his movies being filmed in New York and all of the landmarks there. While they were shooting, crowds were gathering to watch, and one older onlooker, the story goes that they mistook Liza Minnelli for her mom, Judy Garland.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
That makes total sense, especially if you just like hear a glimpse of the voice. You're like, oh, where's Judy? Well, all four actors who played parents in the film, they were Geraldine Fitzgerald, Thomas Babor, Barney Martin, and Stephen Elliott coincidentally died all in the same year of 2005.
Oh, that's almost like one of those curses that you hear about.
I was just about to say,
I mean,
it's like
of course, though, they
Poltergeist
had
movie curse.
Yeah, but they had a lot of living between 1980 and 2005.
I know, but it's so weird.
It is strange. They all
it's
died
the Arthur
the same
curse.
year. The Arthur curse. Okay, one last fact that may blow your mind is that Arthur was one of the top 5 most rented videos when it came out in 1982, when it came out on that VHS and Betamax, which we had Betamax because the people at the camera store told Mom that that was going to be the way of the future.
And they were wrong.
But here's the deal. It was so popular, Amanda, that it stayed in the top 10 most rented movies for 2 years.
So that absolutely blows my mind. All I can think of is that was the case because it was PG and people were like, "Oh, this is adults and kids can watch it." That's all I can think of, because
maybe so.
And then they popped it in and they were like, oh, "This drunk guy is a real knee slapper." Like, what? I mean,
yeah. I don't know. All right, real fans, are you ready to dive in the story that perhaps should have come with its own 12-step program? Let's go.
The movie starts off with that great theme song, which was fantastic.
It was.
And a Rolls Royce, and it's like a very like old school Rolls Royce. Maybe not, I don't know, it was 81, so maybe that was appropriate for that time period. Going down the streets of New York, and we see Arthur.
Oh gosh.
Well, we see and hear Arthur being so obnoxious, like slurring his words, so obnoxious. Literally in that moment, I'm thinking, that is the kind of person, if you are sober, you do not want to be around, because it's so annoying.
So obnoxious.
So I was already annoyed. I was like, what? Like, this is not funny. Well, he's picking up a lady of the night and taking her to dinner and then heading home.
Head on back to his house with her, the lady of the night. Now, let's talk about Arthur Bach, for a minute. He's a wealthy socialite from a powerful English family that's living in New York City. And we actually realize that this is him at the beginning of the movie, when we see him in his heavy drinking, the way he acts in public, those relationships with ladies of the night. Yes. And we learn that people around New York know who he is. Like, oh, you're the rich, they probably want to say rich drunk guy, because apparently his behavior has made the headlines. And you get the idea that Arthur is probably an embarrassment to his family.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the scene by scene. Thank you, sister, for the character breakdown of Arthur. Appreciate that. The next morning, we meet Hobson, his trusted valet, and we really begin to see what a child Arthur is.
We do. So it's so funny because Hobson gets the woman out of the bedroom and out of the house. And he does really treat Arthur like a child. And Arthur goes in, and there's that famous bathtub scene, right? Mm-hmm. And he's in there. He's got a martini and a top hat, and toys are everywhere. And he's singing Christmas songs. I mean, a man-child is a good description of him. And he's talking to Hobson, and you can tell he loves Hobson, and Hobson does treat him like a child in the way, of a
The way
very
he kind of takes
dry,
care of
yeah,
him.
but in a very dry way, right? Not like in
Yes.
a little boy lovey kind of way, in a dry English way.
Yeah.
And in this conversation, we do learn that Arthur hates being alone. But he says, I never have to worry about being alone, do I, Hobson? Because I'll always have you. And I will tell you at that moment, I got a little bit of a strange feeling that there might be
Mhm.
some foreshadowing there. Just had a
It just yeah.
feeling, right?
Yeah. You just got a
But
little
I have
inkling.
to say that Arthur won me over when he says a hot bath is wonderful. That just made him endearing to me because sister,
You love a hot
I
bath.
love a hot bath. I have a hot bath at least once a day, sometimes twice. In the middle of winter, perhaps 3 times. And I know you love a hot bath too,
I do
but
too.
I'm
Yes.
probably a little more over the top than you are.
Yes. Yes. But I do love one. So after the bathtub scene, he has to go to his dad's office, his dad's building, and he is
It's so
present.
formal too. Like he sits outside
Oh
and has to
yeah.
wait to
Oh
go
yeah.
in
It's
and see
very
his
all very
father.
all very formal.
Yeah.
And his dad presents him with this ultimatum. His father and grandmother want him to marry Susan Johnson, who's the daughter of a businessman named Bert Johnson, or he's going to lose his inheritance of $750 million. Well, Arthur's depressed over the pressure. He wants to marry someone when he falls in love. So I have a question
Okay.
because I was trying to figure out like what is this guy's problem? Like why is he such a booze hound? And I'm like, do you think it's because like are we supposed to believe that like because he's being forced into this situation that that's why he's such a boozer or
I
is that
don't know because you get the feeling that it's really just coming up, that maybe they've talked about it before, but now the dad is laying
but
it
now the
out.
pressure's on.
Yeah, but he
And
was
so
an
he's just
obnoxious booze
been
hound before that. I mean, he's a
like a
spoiled
spoil.
rich
Okay.
brat. Is what I
That's
think.
okay. That was I'm like, are we supposed to like feel sorry for? I don't know. I just
Yeah.
wasn't quite sure.
It's hard to understand. You're looking for endearing qualities.
And
But
you're
it's
not
so
seeing
funny
them.
because he tells his dad, as you said, like he wants to marry someone when he falls in love. And his dad, as he's walking out the door, his dad's like, well, say goodbye to the $750
50
million.
million.
And he turns around, he's like, well, have you ever seen Susan in the light? She doesn't look half bad, which I thought was funny. And so, anyway, he pretty much agrees to marry her then.
Yep.
And then he and Hobson go to Bergdorf Goodman to shop. And so they're shopping, and again, he's obnoxious there, and he's not even necessarily drunk. He's like, I'll have 18 of these shirts and 17 of these shirts, just excess, right?
Yes.
But
Ostentatious.
yes, ostentatious. And while he's in there, he looks over, he sees this woman in a red cowboy hat, and she's got a handkerchief tied around her neck, and she's got this big Ferrari duffel bag. And we learn later it's Linda Marola, played by the great Liza Minnelli. But Arthur's watching her. He's intrigued and he's watching her as she steals a necktie, which we learn later is for her unemployed father. And when a security guard confronts her, Arthur steps in and pretends that she was buying it for him because, of course, everybody knows who he is
Arthur,
when he
right.
gets in there, right? So he's trying to diffuse the situation. Now, I have to say, this is one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Yeah, this is cute.
It's cute.
This is cute.
It's clever. They immediately start like just fueling
Bantering
the story and
yeah.
bantering off of one another. And he lays a big kiss on her in front of an entire crowd to sell the story that they're like together. And then, of course, as the security guard's like, I'm sorry. I didn't know she was with you, right? She's thanking him, Linda's thanking him, and she's about to get on the bus, but he's offering for his limo to take her home. And it's so funny because Hobson is like constantly present in all of this. He's like just shuffling around behind Arthur as
Yep.
he's doing all this. Like he's not going to let him out of his sight. So she's about to get on the bus and she says something about your wife. And he said, I'm not married. And as soon as she realizes he's not married, she gets off the bus, gives Arthur his number, and allows his driver, Bitterman, who I loved his character,
Me too.
she allows Bitterman to take her home.
Yes. And I loved that scene too because Arthur was immediately intrigued and taken by her. And she was very unique and quirky and non-traditional looking.
Definitely not an ostentatious, wealthy person.
No, 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 no. But she was very different than what his family would probably expect
Oh, for sure.
of him. So, as you said, Arthur um, drops her off, and then he does take Linda on a date, and they quickly form a connection. They go to the arcade, right?
They do, but I have a question for you because all of a sudden they're on the date, right? And they're like on this rooftop eating. And is that St. Pat's Cathedral behind them? Did you notice that? Because I think it was. And I'm like, I wonder where that is.
Well, I mean, yeah, it very well could have been.
Yeah.
Yes. But I mean, I think that would make sense. I don't know for sure because there are several beautiful cathedrals there, but it could be. But then he takes her to this arcade. And
again, a common childish type thing to do.
But they're having the best time together.
Yeah, they are. And they hit it off quickly.
Yeah, and they're like playing the game where he's doing the shooting and and getting the tickets, and he's so excited. He's getting the tickets, and he goes to the counter. Anyway, they're like really into
man-child.
Yes. But she's right there with them having a good time.
Yeah. Well, then he goes to Martha. That's what he calls his grandmother. He calls his grandmother by her name.
Did you know? Did you? I don't know if I missed it, but like I didn't know that was his grandmother at first, like in the conversation. I didn't realize it until later because he was calling her Martha.
Yeah, I think I just assumed.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is like his elderly lady friend.
And she cracked me up. Like she is this eccentric, rich grandmother. I loved it whenever she's talking to him and she's like, tell me, is it wonderful to be promiscuous? And I just like she is a character for sure. And he tells her all about Linda and that he just thinks she's great, but his grandmother reinforces the same threat his dad did: marry Susan or be disinherited.
Yeah.
And then after she says that, she even suggests, but after you get married, you could set Linda up with an apartment and have a discreet, a rendezvous with her.
Have a mistress.
Yeah. But he wasn't wanting to live that way. But I guess the 750 million just outweighed Linda at that moment. And he agrees to move forward with the engagement. And is that when she gives him her huge diamond ring to pass on to Susan? I was thinking so.
Yeah. And that thing is
gorgeous.
Yeah. And I thought this part was funny because I think my thought was his intention was he was going to go talk to her with the hopes of like maybe she would budge a little bit once she heard, and she was not budging.
Yeah.
So it didn't really do him much good. But before he goes to propose to Susan, Arthur calls Linda to explain the situation.
He does the right thing.
He does the right thing. He's like, look. It's so sad because she answers the phone and she's like got the groceries she's getting ready to make dinner. She's like, oh, I hope you like lasagna or whatever. And he's like, look, here's the thing. And he just tells her that, we've had some fun. This is great, but I'm going to be getting engaged.
Yeah.
And so we can't do this.
That's right. And then her reaction really is like, well, no big deal. We had some fun, etc. But her father is the one who like
is so upset.
He's like crying.
But I kind of got the impression too that, I mean, obviously the father was crying. She wasn't crying, but she was kind of trying to be like cool breeze with him. Like, oh, no
for
big
sure.
deal. Yeah.
I thought so too. But
okay.
It was just funny that she took that approach and her dad was crying. And it reminded me a little bit of the dad from A Star is Born with Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga, how he is just like all about her being with him. Like,
yes.
You know, I don't know. It made me think of that. Well, Arthur needs Hobson to just talk all this out with him. But Arthur finds out that Hobson's not around because he's resting. He's tired, and he's been tired a lot. Another clue that is off of what I was talking about earlier when they said that about him being around a long time. Hobson tells him that he's doing the right thing to marry Susan, right? When they finally get to talk.
Yep.
So
oh my gosh.
because Hobson told him Arthur is off to Susan's house, he's like drinking it up along the way. Amanda, he literally has a bottle of booze and is like driving and pouring it down his throat.
Wait, he is driving. You're
driving.
right. I forgot in this part he is driving.
It's a convertible car, and it's like on the bay.
Again, it's an old looking car. Like it looks like something from like Bedknobs and Broomsticks or something.
Yeah.
Like it looks like it would be like on the horn.
Yeah.
They're like these old looking cars in this movie, like throughout. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Again, like unhinged.
Like you would never I don't think you'd see that in many movies today.
Not as a family PG comedy. Look, guys, this is fun for the whole family.
let's booze it up as we drive down the bay. And let me tell you, when he gets to their house, he goes in and he meets with Susan's dad, Bert, and Bert brings it to his attention. He's really concerned with Arthur's drinking, and Arthur is so obnoxious during this. And the dad, of course, does what any dads would do. He says, look, Susan means everything to me, and I'm going to go to extreme lengths to protect her.
Yeah, but not so much. Like, this was another part of the puzzle that I was like, huh.
He let his daughter get in the car with that guy.
Well, yeah, and he's clearly on board with the whole, farce, the whole setup that they've created of these two getting married. And so I'm like, I don't really believe you.
Yeah. I know. It's odd. The whole thing is odd.
Strange.
And so, well, one thing I want to say in that scene when they're waiting for Susan to come down so Arthur can take her out to propose to her, there's that moose scene, and he like keeps saying things, and he's fascinated about this big moose on Bert's wall. He was improvising all of that. And the actor actually got aggravated at it like we would, right? Like he was obnoxious and annoying. And so his reaction, I think what he says something like to shut up or something. And you see Dudley Moore's reaction. That was all real because the guy had just had enough of the slapstick. And I know it's not really slapstick comedy, but it's obnoxious.
Like over the top.
It's over the top, yeah. So anyway, Arthur does put Susan in the car with him and take her to a high-end restaurant and ultimately proposes. It's excruciating to watch. He still has got all these jokes. He's like, will you marry me? Take the weekend if you want to think about it, right? But she accepts.
So obnoxious.
Yeah, she accepts it though, despite being aware of who he is. She's in it for the money, money, money.
And so by the way, who Susan Johnson is, right?
Well, I knew she was familiar, but I never IMDb'd it.
It's Jill Eikenberry.
Okay. I know
that she's she's been in tons of stuff, tons and tons of stuff. For sure, like tons and tons of TV. And she's
really pretty.
She's really pretty. She's done Broadway, which love that. And then, Hill Street Blues. That's the one I was thinking
Yeah,
of.
yeah, yeah.
She was in LA Law. Just she's been in lots and lots of stuff, but those are two biggies, with Hill Street Blues and LA Law.
Okay.
So yeah. Anyway, because I had to look her up. I was like, I definitely know her. Well, later that night, Arthur visits Linda's apartment by the way, let me just recap. After the proposal, okay?
Yes. And he's even more
proposed.
drunk. Like when he drives up at her house, he like hits a trash can and goes
Oh
up all
yeah.
on the sidewalk.
He's like
and
trying to balance his drink on the edge of the car, and he trips over the bushes.
The moms against drunk driving in the 80s probably wanted to protest this.
It was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad. It was like it wasn't a good look.
No, it wasn't.
So it like didn't hold up in like the side on historically as far as that goes. But he has proposed, and now he's driven over to Linda's apartment.
Yep. He can't resist her.
And offers her $100,000 as a quote unquote parting gift. She is completely insulted, refuses the money, and tells him to leave. And of course, her dad, that's upsetting to him because he's like, really? Seriously? The next day, Hobson is recognizing Arthur's struggle.
Yeah, because they get in a little argument. I think Hobson says something about her, and Arthur's like, "Don't you say anything about her."
Yes.
Yeah.
And so Hobson realizes, ooh, this is like the love. This is like his person, I think is what the realization is.
Yeah.
Which is funny. I mean, he just met her on the street once, basically.
Well, they had a date and they connected quickly.
Mm-hmm. 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 So Hobson visits Linda, and he goes to her apartment, and he gives her a new dress and invites her to the engagement party in Long Island. So you've talked about a couple of like things that your brain is kind of latched onto with Hobson about being tired and, we'll be together forever comment. Well, I noticed in this scene, he was coughing. He had a few coughing spells.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first clue that I was like, oh, something's wrong with Hobson.
Yeah. Well, I have a question here because when Hobson goes to see her, she has on a Ferrari t-shirt and she had a Ferrari bag. And so I wondered what that was all about. And then there's also that like racing scene where Arthur's driving, I don't know if it's a Ferrari or not, but he's driving a race car. And so I just wondered, like, what is that all about? Did they sponsor this movie or what?
Well, maybe for her, it was like something like it's supposed to be like Italian or something. And then it was just like, oh, he likes to race cars. So that was something he liked about her.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
Just another piece to another
piece of the puzzle. Well, we are now, she's got her outfit from Hobson, and she gets dressed up, and we are at another famous scene of the movie. It's where Arthur is playing the piano. Again, he's singing Santa Claus is coming to town, and there's no indication in this movie that it's Christmas time, etc. He's singing, you better watch out. You better not cry.
He's quite the pianist.
Oh, he is. And he is in real life as well.
Like that was amazing.
Yes, he has incredible talent when it comes to the piano. Yes. And so he's entertaining the guest and making everybody laugh. And as he's like playing silly songs about Susan, if you knew Susan like I knew Susan, and he turns around and he notices that Linda is there, who, by the way, looks great in that pink ruffle shirt. That dress. Yeah. She looks beautiful there. But it's like a moth to a flame. She pulls him away from the piano, and they end up in the stables where they talk about the fact that they still have feelings for each other.
Wait, pause.
Okay.
I have to go back to this because you said the part about how she looks beautiful here, and I agree, but not her hair.
No, she and Dudley Moore have the exact same haircut. Hers just has a little more volume.
Her hair is is wild and
They both have a mullet.
unhinged.
They both have a mullet.
It is just, I don't get that.
I know.
I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it, girl. All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
All right. That's okay. Anyway, they're in the stables. They're saying we have feelings, but Susan walks in, and again, it's really a clever exchange because Linda pretends that she's known Arthur for a long time, and she came to borrow money from him
because her husband had they know he knows the husband, and
it was this whole story, and he went along with it. It's interesting to watch those type of scenes to me. But Susan brings bad news to Arthur that Hobson has been hospitalized.
We knew it. We knew something was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's also interesting in the scene to look at the difference between Linda and Susan.
Oh, yes.
I mean, Linda's like fun and eccentric and got her mullet and crazy hair. And Susan is like a trad wife. Like, it's so...
What kind of wife?
A trad wife.
I don't know what that is. I've never heard that saying.
The trad wife trend?
I have never heard this.
It's short for traditional.
Oh, okay.
But it's
you've got teenagers, so maybe that's why you know the.
But it's like an extreme version. I'll send you some.
I think of like an ice princess almost. Like she's.
Well, that too. Yes. Yeah. That I would agree with that. Yes. So Arthur, of course, hears this news and he is upset, obviously. He rushes to the hospital and brings Hobson all the comforts from home. His bed.
Like he literally has his bed brought to the hospital.
No, I know. It's like his room gets set up in the hospital.
Yeah.
And he brings him food, like all the foods that he wants. He makes sure. He has someone like a cook bringing them in. He brings gifts to unwrap, and he just truly makes that hospital room like his home, like Hobson's home.
Yeah.
And he delays the wedding and spends time sober because he's in the hospital. He is taking care of Hobson.
I know it.
And he's focused entirely on getting Hobson better, or at least just his well-being. And eventually he does die.
I know.
And it leaves Arthur devastated. The last words that Hobson says to him is, "You're a good son." So I really think that Arthur viewed Hobson like that was his father, relationship for him.
Figure. Yeah.
That was his father figure. And, he really truly loved and appreciated him, and you could really see it in the scene. I'm going to tell you, in this movie, until about the point where Liza Minnelli goes to the engagement party, pretty much everything before that, I was like, what in the heck what is happening here? I don't even understand. It seemed, and that's what seemed so long to me, because this was like the last 30 minutes.
Yeah.
That. And so once we got to that part, I was like, oh, this is great. And then Hobson died, and it was so sad, and it was sweet seeing all that was great. But the hour leading up to this was a hot mess.
Yeah, it was. So after Hobson dies, we see a pretty short scene with Arthur grieving. And then the next thing you know, he's back in a bar drinking heavily, and it's the day of his wedding. It's actually in that scene, his wedding is less than 5 hours away. But what does Arthur decide to do? He decides to go visit Linda at her diner. He professes his love. He proposes to her, and he tells her that he's willing to give up everything to be with her. Linda accepts the proposal, and they agree to run over to the church to tell Susan together.
Never mind that he's been drinking all day. Right?
I mean, he's drunk as a skunk. He's got the grief from Hobson, and then the worry of the wedding. And
and he gets drunk
together,
and proposes.
Yes.
I would be worried if I were her. Like, oh my gosh, when we wake up tomorrow, is he going to completely regret?
Yes.
Is he not even going to remember that we had this conversation?
For sure.
But because of this, obviously, this stalled him a little bit. So he arrives late to the wedding and tells Susan that he doesn't love her, and which he doesn't. And Susan becomes angry and calls her daddy, and her father attacks Arthur, like beats him up,
Yes.
punches him out into a table. The table breaks and he's on the floor. And there's a lot of like serious anger here.
There really is.
And Linda tries to protect him, but Bert Johnson, grabs a cheese knife, and Martha Bach enters and slaps Johnson, stopping the altercation.
I know. I was like, is he going to kill Arthur? And like, I mean, I guess I don't know if you could kill him with a cheese knife, but you
You're
might
like,
could.
is he going to go after him?
Yeah,
I do think also it was funny looking at the bridesmaids in this wedding, like they're out their bridesmaids dresses, their get-ups.
Yes.
A lot of chiffon.
Yeah. There was a lot of chiffon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Arthur, recovers from the altercation and he goes out to the altar and he announces to the crowd that the wedding is canceled. He tells the guests that he's going to be cut off from his inheritance and he collapses. So, right, he just collapses, he passes out. But after the guests leave, Arthur and Linda are sitting on the altar and they're talking about their future and how poor they're going to be, but they'll be in love. And they're just talking about all the things they're going to be missing out on.
And hopefully he's sobered up at this point.
Hopefully.
Martha, who has been the grandmother, who has been sitting in the church, because the church is empty now, except for Arthur and Linda sitting at the altar. And the grandmother's still there, but she's sitting far enough back in the pews that they don't realize she's there. But she is sitting there watching them and is listening to them talk. And she steps in and tells Arthur he will still receive his full inheritance. She says no heir of her family will ever be working class. And Arthur initially resists.
But of course.
But he ultimately accepts. He actually resists, and he fires his driver Bitterman. He's like, well, if it's been good, thanks for driving me or whatever. But then he, within 30 seconds, he completely recants and accepts, and Bitterman's still his driver.
Yes. And in that final scene, we see Arthur and Linda being driven around through Central Park in the Rolls Royce, and Bitterman is at the wheel. And I guess we can assume that they live happily ever after, but
not unless he goes to AA.
I was going to say, there is not enough money in the world for me to want to live with somebody who is that drunk and obnoxious 99.9% of the time. Now, maybe he's going to be happy now. He's going to be in charge of the money and he's going to have Linda, his true love. So maybe he'll stop drinking, but this is
another, we talk about, I say 80s movies often, I say they're unhinged and they're problematic. I love them, but they're problematic because this is yet another film where we're watching and we're like, oh, now he's got his true love. He's going to be happy and he's not going to be a blundering alcoholic. I don't know if he's an alcoholic or not, but he seems to be.
He's for sure an alcoholic.
We're like, oh, now he's found his one true love, so he's going to not be.
He'll be saved from the addiction of alcohol.
Yeah, now he's going to be happy, and so it's this idea that now he's going to change for the girl.
All right, so let's talk about it. I think we both have a feel of what we're both going to say. How does it measure up to today's world, sister?
Not in any way at all. It is so inappropriate with the foolish drunkenness that definitely doesn't hold up historically. It just is not as people say, it's not on the right side of history. And I mean, that one little storyline of him and Hobson is so sweet.
Yeah.
But even that doesn't really get developed enough that makes it stand the test of time.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's a sweet moment that he cares for him, but
yeah, the story's not developed enough for you to really buy into it. Yeah.
He doesn't really have any redemptive qualities.
I watched this with my husband, Chris, and he, of course, is 8 years older than me. So when he saw it the first time, he was, if I was 12, he was 20. And that's funny, isn't it? Because he's 8 years older. But Chris Washam laughed all through this movie, thought it was hysterical. And when it was over, he knows that we always talk about, does it measure up? And he looked at me and he said, well, that one measures up. And I said, you think so? Right? Like, really? You think?
But does it now?
But does it now? And so I would say I am right there with you. There's no reason for me to keep lamenting over the fact that, this is, but I will say, I thought it was funny back in the day.
At the time.
I thought it was funny.
Well, see, that's what I was just about to say. Like, I'm like, it just wasn't funny to me.
Yeah.
It was just not funny.
Well, now I definitely don't like that kind of obnoxious slapstick funny. And let's face it, whenever I saw it at 12, what I thought was funny probably wouldn't be funny to me now because I've actually been around people who have been that drunk. And
you've been on the other side of that in real life.
And you realize that's not really fun. Not fun and not funny.
Yeah. I also will say the Susan in the story definitely got out of that on the good side.
Yes,
like
she did.
Yeah. Lucky for her. Yeah. So yeah, it definitely does not measure up. So real fans, I don't think we've had many that have not measured up, but this is one that we just can't give it to. So that wraps up this week's episode of Real Sisters Rewind.
Next week, we're leaving New York and heading straight into the desert for one of the wildest comedies of the decade.
All right. Can we start giving clues?
Give a clue, sister.
All right. Clue number 1. It's a comedy of mistaken identity taken way too far.
Clue number 2. The heroes in this movie think they're performing on a set, but the danger is actually very real.
All right. Clue number 3. One of the stars was known for his wild and unpredictable performances on Saturday Night Live.
He was one wild and crazy guy. Think you know it? Send us your guesses on Insta or drop them in the comments. We love hearing from you.
And if you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. Take that screenshot and send it to hello@realsistersrewind.com so we can get a sticker to you.
Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye, y'all.